What if I told you your bank account is not empty because of a lack of money, but because of an excess of loss processing? What if the crisis you blame, the market you curse, the bad luck you whisper about at night, is not the real enemy? What if the real enemy is a silent filter inside your own mind? There is a blind spot in your internal system, a line of hidden code, an invisible protocol running in the background of your consciousness. And that protocol is deleting golden opportunities before you even recognize them. You call it reality. Heaven calls it miscalibration. You are not interacting with the world as it is. You are interacting with the world as you are able to process it. And if your processing system is configured for loss, you will walk past miracles, the invisible filter. There are millions of bits of information entering your nervous system every single second. Colors, voices, facial expressions, numbers, opportunities, connections, ideas, solutions. But your conscious mind can only process a tiny fraction, around 50 to 100 bits. That means more than 99.999% of reality is filtered out, deleted, discarded, ignored. The question is not, is abundance available? The real question is, what is your system allowing you to see? Modern neuroscience calls this filtering mechanism the reticular activating system, the RAS. It is a network in your brainstem that acts like a gatekeeper, a bouncer, a sentinel. It decides what enters your awareness and what stays invisible. But here is the revelation that should shake you. Your RAS does not filter based on truth. It filters based on importance. And you define importance. If you wake up thinking about debt, your RAS scans for debt. If you wake up thinking about crisis, your RAS scans for crisis. If you wake up thinking about betrayal, your RAS scans for betrayal. You are issuing search commands every morning, and your brain obeys. Now listen carefully. The Master Jesus understood this long before neuroscience discovered it, when he said, "The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light." He was not speaking in poetry alone. He was describing perception engineering. Your eye is not merely a receiver. It is a selector. It determines what enters your inner world. If your eye is corrupted by scarcity, fear, suspicion, and lack, your entire body, your biology, your emotions, your decisions will be filled with darkness. Darkness is not evil. Darkness is blindness. It is the inability to detect value, the addiction to loss. Here is the brutal truth. Your nervous system may be addicted to processing loss. Negative information produces strong neurological activation. Threat detection releases cortisol. Anticipation of danger sharpens attention. Your brain evolved to survive predators, not to build empires. So it scans for what might hurt you, constantly. But in a modern economy, this survival bias becomes sabotage. You scroll through headlines, crisis, inflation, layoffs, war, collapse. And every headline reinforces your internal command: search for danger. The more you focus on loss, the more your system confirms it. You become a specialist in problems, but illiterate in opportunity. Two people can walk into the same collapsing market. One sees disaster, the other sees discounted assets. Same environment, different filter. Same field, different eye. And this is why many honest, hard-working, faithful people remain stuck. They pray for abundance, but their internal sensor is addicted to lack. You cannot attract what your system is trained to ignore. The kingdom paradox. Then comes one of the most misunderstood declarations ever spoken. To the one who has, more will be given, but to the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken. At first glance, this sounds cruel, unfair, contradictory. But the Master was not describing favoritism. He was describing coherence. The system amplifies coherence. If your internal state is "I have," your brain scans for expansion. If your internal state is "I don't have," your brain scans for evidence of deprivation. And because your perception shapes your decisions shape your outcomes. Your outcomes reinforce your identity, and the cycle locks in. This is not magic. This is feedback loop engineering. The wealthy investor sees leverage because his nervous system is not hijacked by survival panic. The desperate man sees risk because his RAS is screaming "protect." When you have internally clarity, confidence, expectation, your biology shifts. Cortisol decreases, creativity increases. You notice connections, you recognize openings, you move. But when you process "I don't have," your system contracts, your vision narrows, your thinking becomes defensive. Even if money enters your life, you will subconsciously sabotage it because your identity is calibrated to lack. The system always returns you to coherence. The fields are already white. There's another moment. The disciples look at dry land. They calculate months. They see delay. And the master says, "Lift up your eyes. The fields are already white." This is perception shock therapy. They were looking at the calendar. He was looking at opportunity. They were processing time. He was processing opportunity. Here is the secret. Scarcity focuses on cost. Abundance focuses on value. Scarcity asks, "What could I lose?" Abundance asks, "What can be created?" Scarcity waits for perfect conditions. Abundance acts on present openings. The field did not change. The observer did. And the moment perception changed, harvest became visible. You may be sitting on talents you dismiss, connections you underestimate, ideas you ignore, because your filter is screaming, "Not enough." But what if the field is already white? What if the opportunity is not in the future, but hidden behind your mental bias? Engineering light. When the master said, "If your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light," he was revealing biological alignment. Your focus influences hormonal balance, decision speed, risk tolerance, creative output, energy levels, and social confidence. Light is not mystical glow. Light is clarity. When your perception is aligned with solution, your nervous system relaxes. When it relaxes, it sees. When it sees, it acts. When it acts, it produces. But if your eye is corrupted, if your focus is trained to detect injustice, betrayal, and crisis, your body floods with stress chemistry. Stress chemistry narrows perception. Narrow perception blocks innovation. Blocked innovation reinforces scarcity. And you call it fate. It is not fate. It is filtering. The reset command. Information alone does not update the system. Decision does. The master spoke of binding and loosing. He was speaking about internal authorization. You have authority over what you consistently focus on, but authority requires discipline. You cannot declare abundance in the morning and binge on fear at night. You cannot decree faith while consuming narratives of collapse for hours. Your nervous system obeys repetition. So, here is the beginning of the reset. Identify what you repeatedly focus on. Recognize that focus as a command. Decide whether that command serves expansion or contraction. You are issuing internal search queries every minute. Change the query. Change the filter. Change the outcomes. This is not positive thinking. This is not denial. This is not fantasy. This is not pretending problems don't exist. This is engineering what you allow to dominate your attention. You can acknowledge reality without being hypnotized by it. You can analyze risk without worshiping it. You can see crisis without identifying with it. The goal is not blindness to danger. The goal is immunity to fixation. When your system is no longer addicted to detecting loss, it becomes available to detect value, and value is everywhere. The first breakthrough. Right now, as you read this, your nervous system is filtering your environment. There are opportunities around you, conversations, ideas, untapped skills, undervalued markets, connections waiting to be activated. But if your internal narrative says this is a bad season, your RAS will obey, and the field will appear barren. If your internal narrative shifts to what value is hidden here, your RAS will obey that too. And suddenly, the field turns white. Nothing external may change at first, but your perception will. And perception is the doorway to action. Action is the doorway to momentum. Momentum is the doorway to expansion. A warning. Resetting your algorithm will feel uncomfortable because your identity has been shaped by years of processing lack. When you begin to focus on value instead of fear, your old wiring will resist. You may feel exposed, uncertain, vulnerable. That is not danger. That is reconfiguration. You are not losing stability. You are losing distortion. So I ask you, what signal is your internal hardware emitting right now? Is it broadcasting protect, defend, survive? Or is it broadcasting create, build, multiply? The kingdom does not respond to need alone. It responds to alignment. Abundance is not given to those who beg for it. It flows through those calibrated to handle it. And calibration begins with the eye. If your eye becomes good, your whole system lights up. And when your system lights up, you stop chasing abundance. You start recognizing it. You reset the algorithm. You declared the shift. You felt the surge of clarity. For a moment, your perception sharpened. Your mind felt expanded. Possibility felt real. And then, it faded. Not because the revelation was false, but because your hardware is saturated. There is a biochemical war happening inside you, and most people lose it before they even realize it exists. The chemical coup. Your brain does not only filter information, it rewards focus. Every time you check your phone, every time you refresh a feed, every time you consume novelty, a tiny pulse of dopamine is released. Dopamine is not pleasure. Dopamine is anticipation. It is the chemical of pursuit, the molecule of maybe. It evolved to push you toward food, survival, discovery. But in the modern world, it has been weaponized. Your nervous system is being hijacked by micro rewards. Scroll, ping, notification, short video, headline, shock, outrage, novelty. Each one delivers a spike. Each spike trains your brain to crave unpredictability. And here is the danger. When dopamine is constantly spiking, baseline motivation collapses. Your system becomes overstimulated but underdirected. You feel busy, but you're not building. You feel engaged, but you're not expanding. This is the distraction virus, and it silently reinstalls scarcity. Why distraction breeds lack? Remember what we established. Your RAS filters based on what you repeatedly focus on. Now consider this. If your attention is fragmented all day long, your internal search command becomes chaotic. There's no sustained focus, no deep scanning, no pattern recognition. Abundance requires pattern recognition. Opportunity hides inside complexity. It requires extended concentration, strategic thinking, delayed gratification, risk assessment, and vision. But dopamine addiction rewires you for immediate reward, constant novelty, emotional stimulation, short attention bursts. And here is the brutal truth. You cannot detect long-term opportunity with a short-term nervous system. The master withdrew often. He fasted. He separated. He disconnected from the noise. Why? Because clarity requires silence. Your hardware cannot process divine-level opportunity while overloaded with digital chaos. The dopamine trap. High dopamine spikes create a crash. After the crash, your baseline drops lower than before. This produces restlessness, irritability, lack of motivation, brain fog, impatience. And when your baseline dopamine drops, your perception darkens, scarcity thinking increases, threat detection rises, creativity falls. You begin scanning for problems again, not because the field changed, but because your chemistry did. You think the economy is worse, the market is impossible, I'm behind. But often, your brain is simply dysregulated. You are not poor in opportunity, you are poor in sustained attention. The Master's Protocol. Withdrawal. There is a pattern that many ignore. Before major manifestations, before miracles, before pivotal decisions, there was withdrawal, silence, fasting, isolation. This was not ritual, it was neurological reset. When you remove constant stimulation, dopamine receptors recalibrate, sensitivity returns, baseline stabilizes, focus deepens. Suddenly, simple work feels rewarding again. Long-term planning becomes possible. Strategic thought becomes enjoyable. The nervous system stops screaming for novelty. And when novelty addiction subsides, your perception sharpens. You begin to see value again. The virus of noise. Noise is not just sound. Noise is informational overload. Every opinion you consume becomes a potential distortion. Every outrage headline becomes a micro-command to scan for threat. Every comparison on social media becomes a micro-seed of inadequacy. Your RAS cannot distinguish between important to survival and emotionally stimulating. It obeys repetition. If you consume crisis narratives daily, your system trains for crisis detection. If you consume envy triggers daily, your system trains for inadequacy. If you consume distraction daily, your system loses strategic coherence. And a scattered mind cannot build empires. The biological reset. If you want to sustain abundance perception, you must reclaim biochemical authority. Here is the first level reset. Controlled stimulation windows. Designate strict periods for social media, news, entertainment. Outside those windows, eliminate access. Not reduce, eliminate. You are not weak. You are rewiring deep work blocks. Minimum 60 to 90 minutes. No phone, no notifications, no switching tasks. At first, it will feel painful, restless, uncomfortable. That is detox. Your brain is craving micro rewards. Hold steady. Within days, clarity increases. Within weeks, focus produces compounding opportunity detection. The dopamine fast. Strategic, not extreme. This does not mean deprivation of joy. It means removal of artificial spikes. Reduce constant scrolling, excess shooter, endless novelty consumption, multi-screen behavior. When spikes reduce, baseline stabilizes. When baseline stabilizes, motivation becomes internal. And internal motivation is the foundation of abundance, the power of sustained gaze. Abundance is not attracted by excitement. It is attracted by stability. Investors trust calm minds. Opportunities trust consistent builders. Creative breakthroughs emerge from prolonged contemplation. If your gaze cannot stay steady, your field will always appear fragmented. The Master said, if your eye is single, Single means undistracted, aligned. A divided eye produces divided outcomes. A single eye produces light. The war for your attention. Understand this clearly. Attention is currency. Whoever controls your attention controls your trajectory. If platforms dictate your focus, your future becomes reactive. If you dictate your focus, your future becomes intentional. This is not spiritual exaggeration. This is neurological governance. Your prefrontal cortex, the executive center, strengthens with sustained attention. Stronger prefrontal function means better decisions, reduced impulsivity, increased planning, higher risk assessment quality, greater emotional regulation. This is how abundance becomes sustainable, not through excitement, through executive control. Why many reset and relapse. You feel inspired. You declare abundance. You begin strong. Then distraction creeps back in. Why? Because identity was not fully upgraded. If you still see yourself as easily distracted, chronically behind, needing constant stimulation, dependent on external validation, your nervous system will revert. So here is the deeper shift. You are not trying to focus. You are becoming someone who governs attention. You are not limiting distractions. You are reclaiming cognitive sovereignty. The second breakthrough. Once dopamine stabilizes, something powerful happens. Boredom transforms into insight. Silence becomes fertile. Ideas emerge without force. Patterns connect. You begin noticing market inefficiencies, underserved niches, untapped demand, strategic timing. Not because they appeared, but because you can finally see them. The field was always white. Your eyes were overstimulated. The discipline of light. Light requires maintenance. You cannot detox once and return to chaos. Perception is like a lens. Dust accumulates daily. Your responsibility is daily recalibration. Morning silence, focused planning, intentional input, strategic action. This is not religious ritual. This is neurological optimization. And when your nervous system stabilizes, fear reduces, creativity expands, confidence solidifies, and abundance stops feeling mystical. It becomes inevitable. The decision point. Right now, you stand at a threshold. You can continue reacting to headlines, chasing stimulation, processing crisis. Or you can choose directed attention, chemical stability, strategic focus. One path feels easier. The other builds empires. One path consumes energy. The other compounds it. The war is not in the market. It is in your mind. Declaration of control. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the pull of distraction. Recognize it. Do not judge it. Then decide. Not emotionally, authoritatively. I govern my attention. I reject chemical manipulation. I train my nervous system for long-term vision. I become stable. I become single-eyed. I become aligned. This is not motivational language. This is neural conditioning. Repetition builds circuitry. Circuitry builds destiny. You cleaned the lens. You stabilized the chemistry. You reclaimed your attention. But now we approach the deepest layer, the layer most people never confront, because it is not about money. It is not about opportunity. It is not about discipline. It is about identity. And identity is the architecture that determines what you are allowed to keep. Why people rise and fall. You have seen it. Someone builds wealth, then loses it. Someone breaks through, then collapses. Someone finally gets momentum, then sabotages it. From the outside, it looks like bad luck. From the inside, it is coherence enforcement. Your nervous system will always pull you back to the level of identity you believe you deserve. If your identity says, "I am someone who struggles," you will unconsciously recreate struggle. If your identity says, "I am someone who survives," you will sabotage abundance to re-enter survival mode. If your identity says, "Wealth changes people," you will resist becoming wealthy, because your subconscious is loyal, and it is loyal to what is familiar. The comfort of scarcity. Here is a truth most refuse to admit. Scarcity can feel safe. Struggle can feel known. Limitation can feel predictable. When you operate in lack, you understand the rules. You know how to function. You know how to cope. But abundance introduces uncertainty. More visibility, more responsibility, more expectation, more exposure. And exposure triggers vulnerability. Your subconscious asks, "What if I cannot sustain this? What if I am exposed as incapable? What if I lose it all?" So instead of risking expansion, it pulls you back to what it understands: scarcity. Not because you want it, but because it feels stable. The parable of talents, internal version. When it was said, "To the one who has, more will be given," it was not just about resources, it was about stewardship identity. The servant who buried his talent did not lack opportunity. He lacked self-perception. He said, "I was afraid." Fear distorted his interpretation of the master. Fear distorted his risk assessment. Fear distorted his behavior. And fear preserved stagnation. Now understand this. If you internally see authority as harsh, you will fear expansion. If you internally see opportunity as dangerous, you will bury potential. If you internally see yourself as incapable, you will reject growth. Identity filters interpretation. Interpretation shapes action. Action shapes result reinforces identity. Cycle complete. The subconscious loyalty contract. Many people carry silent contracts. I will not outgrow my family. I will not exceed my parents. I will not become someone others envy. I will not risk rejection. These contracts operate below awareness, but they regulate your ceiling. If success threatens belonging, you will unconsciously cap your income. If wealth threatens acceptance, you will unconsciously delay opportunity. If expansion threatens identity, you will unconsciously stall progress. This is not weakness. This is attachment wiring, and wiring can be rewritten. The mirror test. Ask yourself, if abundance arrived tomorrow, would you feel calm or anxious? Would you feel worthy or exposed? Would you feel grounded or overwhelmed? Your emotional response reveals your identity baseline. Your nervous system cannot hold what it does not recognize as normal. Wealth retention requires identity expansion, not just income increase. Identity is a prediction engine. Your brain is a prediction engine. It constantly anticipates what someone like you experiences. If your internal narrative says, "I'm always behind," you will find evidence. If your narrative says, "Nothing works out for me," you will confirm it. If your narrative says, "I build steadily," your perception shifts. The system searches for congruent data. The master spoke of becoming. According to your faith, be it you. Faith is not blind optimism. It is internal identity expectation. It is internal certainty. When expectation shifts, behavior follows. The wealth self versus the survival self. Inside you are two identities. The survival self, hyper-aware of threats, focused on immediate needs, defensive, reactive, short-term oriented. And the wealth self, strategic, calm under pressure, future-oriented, value-focused, builder mindset. Both are neural pathways. Both are available, but repetition strengthens one over the other. If your daily thoughts revolve around survival, you strengthen the survival self. If your daily thoughts revolve around creation, you strengthen the wealth self. The question is not which one exists. The question is, which one do you feed? Identity rewriting protocol. You do not change identity through emotion. You change identity through repetition and evidence. Here is the high-level protocol. 1. Define the wealth identity clearly. Not fantasy, not arrogance, precision. Who are you becoming? How does that version think? How does that version respond to stress? How does that version handle money?
How does that version interpret setbacks? Write it. Detail it. Clarify it. Vagueness weakens rewiring. 2. Micro-embodiment. Do not wait for millions. Embody now. If the wealth self is strategic, schedule strategically. If the wealth self invests, study investing. If the wealth self networks, reach out. Small congruent actions signal your brain. This is who we are. The nervous system updates through behavior, not declarations alone. 3. Emotional normalization. Visualize holding higher responsibility calmly. Visualize larger transactions without anxiety. Visualize expansion without guilt. The goal is not excitement. The goal is normalization. When your body feels neutral about larger numbers, you are upgrading capacity. The guilt of ascension. Some people sabotage wealth because they fear becoming different. They fear losing relatability. They fear judgment. They fear loneliness. But here is a reality. Growth always changes dynamics. The master outgrew environments, outgrew expectations, outgrew familiarity. Not to dominate, but to fulfill alignment. If you shrink to remain comfortable, you betray potential. And betrayal of potential breeds resentment. Resentment reinforces scarcity. The cycle continues. The internal government. You are a system. Thoughts are policies. Emotions are signals. Habits are legislation. Identity is the Constitution. If your Constitution says, "We struggle," every policy will reflect struggle. Rewrite the Constitution. Declare internally, "We build. We expand. We handle growth wisely. We steward resources wisely." Repetition ingrains. Ingraining stabilizes. Stability attracts. The third breakthrough. When identity shifts, effort feels different. You stop forcing abundance. You start acting congruently with it. You no longer panic at setbacks. You analyze them. You no longer fear visibility. You embrace responsibility. This is not ego inflation. It is internal alignment. And alignment is magnetic, the test of consistency. Identity is proven under pressure. When income dips, do you collapse? When criticism appears, do you retreat? When opportunity feels intimidating, do you withdraw? Each response reveals your dominant identity. Do not judge the result. Observe it. Then reinforce the desired identity through action. Consistency converts identity into destiny. Declaration of becoming. Close your eyes again. Not dramatically, but intentionally. Say internally, I release loyalty to struggle. I outgrow limitation without guilt. I expand without apology. I handle abundance responsibly. I am not surviving. I am building. Feel the resistance. That resistance is old wiring. Stay steady. Repetition dissolves resistance. You have come far. You reset the filter. You stabilized the chemistry. You began rewriting identity. But now we enter a layer that silently drains power even from the disciplined. This is where abundance leaks out. Not through ignorance, not through laziness, but through unprocessed emotion. There are two invisible thieves: resentment, comparison. They operate quietly, but they sabotage frequency at the deepest level. The weight of resentment. Resentment feels justified. It feels intelligent. It feels morally correct. They had advantages. They cheated. They were born into opportunity. They don't deserve it. Listen carefully. Resentment is not about justice. It is about fixation. When you resent someone's success, your nervous system locks on their abundance, but through the lens of hostility. And hostility creates contraction. Contraction narrows perception. Narrow perception blocks creativity. Blocked creativity reduces opportunity detection. Resentment is energetic friction. It consumes bandwidth. The master said to forgive, not because it was morally poetic, but because resentment chains perception to the past. You cannot build forward while emotionally anchored backward. How resentment distorts the field. When you resent the wealthy, you subconsciously associate wealth with corruption. When you resent successful people, you subconsciously associate success with unfairness. When you resent opportunity, you subconsciously distance yourself from it. Your identity whispers, if I become wealthy, I become like them. So your system protects your moral self-image by rejecting expansion. Resentment feels powerful, but it weakens you because it places your emotional state in someone else's hands. Abundance requires internal sovereignty. Resentment is emotional dependency. The biology of bitterness. Anger activates stress chemistry. Short bursts can be productive, but sustained resentment keeps cortisol elevated. Chronic cortisol impairs decision-making, increases risk aversion, reduces long-term planning, heightens threat sensitivity. When your body stays in subtle hostility, you perceive the world as adversarial. And in an adversarial world, you defend. You do not expand. You survive. You do not build. Resentment keeps you in survival mode, and survival mode cannot sustain abundance. Release is strategic, not sentimental. Forgiveness is not saying injustice is acceptable. It is saying, I refuse to carry this weight. Release doesn't free them. It frees you. It restores cognitive bandwidth. It recalibrates chemistry. It reopens perception. When resentment dissolves, energy returns, clarity returns, strategic thinking returns, and suddenly the field looks different. Not because the world changed, but because your nervous system unclenched. The poison of comparison. Now we face the second thief. Comparison seems harmless. It begins as curiosity, then turns into evaluation, then turns into inadequacy. Social media magnifies this distortion. You see curated success,
Filtered victories, highlight reels, and your brain performs automatic ranking. Behind, late, not enough. Each comparison is a micro-judgment. Each micro-judgment reinforces scarcity, because abundance requires internal sufficiency. If your baseline state is inadequacy, you will chase validation, not value. You will pursue appearance, not mastery. You will move reactively, not strategically. Comparison destabilizes identity. The illusion of timeline. Comparison thrives on timelines. At my age, they're younger than me. They already have. This thinking assumes uniform destiny, but expansion is not linear. It is asymmetrical. Some bloom early, some bloom later. The master began public work at 30. Before that, preparation, silence, development, hidden growth. Do not mistake hidden seasons for failure. Roots grow before fruit appears. If you dig up your roots to compare height, you stunt your gratitude as cognitive recalibration. Now we shift to power. Gratitude is not politeness. It is neurological recalibration. When you deliberately focus on what is working, your RAS updates its search command. Instead of scanning for lack, it scans for reinforcement. Gratitude increases dopamine and serotonin stability. It lowers stress chemistry. It widens attention. Widened attention detects opportunity. This is why gratitude feels expansive. It literally expands perception. When the master gave thanks before multiplication, he was modeling perception alignment. He did not deny limitation. He acknowledged provision, and acknowledgement amplified possibility. The energy of sufficiency. Abundance begins with sufficiency, not in numbers, but in state. When you feel internally sufficient, you negotiate differently. You speak differently. You risk differently. You do not beg for opportunity, you recognize it. You do not cling to resources, you steward them. Sufficiency is calm confidence. It is not arrogance. It is grounded capacity. Comparison erodes sufficiency. Gratitude restores it. Plugging the leaks. Here is the recalibration protocol. 1. Audit emotional drain. Ask, who do I resent? Whose success triggers me? What memories still generate heat? Write them. Do not spiritualize. Do not deny. Observe. Awareness weakens emotional grip. 2. Reframe without self-deception. Instead of, they don't deserve it, shift to, what can I learn? Instead of, I'm behind, shift to, my path is different. Instead of, they had advantages, shift to, what advantages do I already possess? This is not fantasy. This is perceptual redirection. 3. Daily sufficiency practice. Every day, identify one skill you have, one connection available, one resource present, one opportunity visible. This trains your RAS to detect capacity. Capacity recognition fuels expansion. The fourth breakthrough. When resentment dissolves and comparison fades, you experience lightness. Mental space increases. Confidence stabilizes. You move without internal friction. This is energetic coherence. Coherence strengthens signal. Strong signal attracts response, not mystically, but strategically. Because calm, focused, non-bitter individuals make better decisions, and better decisions compound. Abundance without inner conflict. You cannot sustainably expand while internally divided. If part of you desires wealth and part of you despises the wealthy, conflict drains momentum. If part of you wants visibility and part fears judgment, you stall. Alignment requires integration. It requires saying, I can prosper ethically. I can expand without arrogance. I can succeed without betraying myself. When identity and ambition align, energy flows uninterrupted. Declaration of release. Pause again, not theatrically, but deliberately. Say internally, I release resentment. I bless without comparison. I build without envy. I expand without guilt. I operate from sufficiency.
Feel the shift, even subtle. That is coherence forming. This is the final layer. You have dismantled distortion. You have stabilized chemistry. You have rewritten identity. You have released resentment. You have neutralized comparison. Now we integrate. Because awareness without structure fades. Insight without execution dissolves. Revelation without embodiment becomes entertainment. This is where you stop consuming and start constructing. The 5 pillars of the abundance operating system. Abundance is not an emotion. It is not a miracle event. It is a calibrated system, and every system has pillars. If one pillar collapses, instability returns. Here are the 5 pillars: perceptual calibration, chemical stability, identity alignment, emotional coherence, strategic execution. Let us fuse them. 1. Perceptual calibration. Your eye determines your field. If you focus on lack, you reinforce lack. If you scan for value, you reinforce value. Perception is daily training. Each morning you issue a search command. So ask, what value exists today? What opportunity is hidden here? What can be created? This keeps your RAS scanning for expansion. Perception is the gate. Guard it. 2. Chemical stability. Without biochemical balance, perception collapses. Overstimulated minds cannot sustain vision. Protect your dopamine baseline. Limit noise. Prioritize deep work. Respect sleep. Move your body. Silence is not laziness, it is calibration. Your nervous system is the hardware. If hardware overheats, performance drops. Stability multiplies clarity. Clarity multiplies execution. 3. Identity alignment. You cannot outperform your self-image for long. If your identity is small, success feels foreign. Upgrade your identity deliberately. See yourself as a builder, a steward, a strategist, a creator of value. Act congruently before results appear.
Behavior precedes belief reinforcement. Identity becomes normal through repetition. Normal becomes destiny. 4. Emotional coherence. Resentment drains. Comparison destabilizes. Guilt contracts. Release them. Gratitude recalibrates. Sufficiency stabilizes. Internal peace amplifies signal strength. When you are emotionally coherent, your decisions are cleaner. Your communication is clearer. Your energy is focused. Friction decreases. Momentum increases. 5. Strategic execution. This is where most people fail. They feel aligned but do not move. Abundance requires action, not frantic action, directed action. Choose a value creation path. Master it. Improve it daily. Compound skill. Network intentionally. Invest wisely. Track metrics. Review weekly. Adjust monthly. Execution is the physical expression of internal alignment. Without execution, perception decays. The loop of expansion. When these 5 pillars operate together, a loop forms. Clear perception, stable chemistry, strong identity, emotional coherence, strategic action, positive results, reinforced identity, expanded perception, and the cycle strengthens. Compounding begins, not because of magic, because of alignment. The final illusion to break. There is one last distortion. Waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for confidence, waiting for certainty.
But clarity grows through movement. Confidence grows through repetition. Certainty grows through evidence. You do not wait for abundance. You act in alignment with it. The master did not wait for the sea to calm before walking. Movement preceded stabilization. Action often precedes confirmation. From detector of crisis to architect of value. Previously, your system scanned for threat. Now it scans for opportunity. Previously, your chemistry craved distraction. Now it supports focus. Previously, identity defaulted to survival. Now it defaults to creation. Previously, emotion leaked through resentment. Now it flows through coherence. Previously, action was reactive. Now it is strategic. This is transformation, not mystical, systemic, the law of internal authority. External outcomes reflect internal governance. If your internal government is chaotic, external life appears chaotic. If your internal government is disciplined, external life stabilizes. Authority begins within. Bind distraction, loose focus. Bind resentment, loose gratitude. Bind comparison, loose sufficiency. Bind passivity, loose execution. Internal decrees shape external patterns. What happens next? Do not expect fireworks. Expect subtle shifts. You will notice clearer thinking, reduced emotional volatility, better timing, improved conversations, smarter risks, unexpected connections. These are not coincidences. They are outputs of recalibrated perception. The field was always white. Now you see it. The sustainability test. The true test is consistency. Can you maintain focus when bored, stay calm when criticized, act strategically when afraid, remain grateful when challenged? Abundance is sustained by maturity. Maturity is sustained by discipline. Discipline is sustained by identity. Identity is sustained by repetition. So repeat, daily, quietly, without drama. The final declaration. Close your eyes one last time. Not for emotion, for alignment. Say internally, my perception is calibrated. My chemistry is stable. My identity is expanded. My emotions are coherent. My actions are strategic. I am not chasing abundance. I am aligned with it. Feel the stillness. That stillness is power, not excitement, not hype. Power. The real secret. Abundance is recognition, not acquisition. It is the ability to detect, develop, and multiply value. And that ability is trainable. You are no longer a detector of crises. You are an architect of opportunity. You are no longer waiting for harvest. You see the field, and you move. The algorithm is updated. The system is aligned. Now build.